How we doing, Danny? You ready to roll? Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon and welcome back to our regular Rotary meetings. I miss you guys. So today is the January 5, 2024 meeting at the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. I want to thank Beth Handworker and Craig Tapp for serving as greeters today. Eric Marcus for handling Ticketmaster and other various functions as assigned. Thanks for Beth Handworker also for setting up and assisting with our program. Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Zwick for the great program. And thanks to Jim Gundel for handling the website. I'd like to invite Denny Jarvie up for the invitations.
Well, Happy New Year. Would you please join me in prayer? Oh, Holy Creator, we Rotarians worldwide acknowledge your power and your expectations that we be of service to mankind. Let us renew these obligations to fulfill that expectation, just as the return of winter renews our growth in the world around us, and the commitment to help others in our community, our nation, and our world. With the power, influence, and wealth that we have as leaders in this place, will certainly have, let us always remember that these are blessings from you, and that charity is more than a fulfilling of decadence. And the golden rule is much richer yardstick than any bank account. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right, Eric Marcus, can you give us a secretary's report?
I'm trying. They're still walking in the door.
That'll happen.
I'm the latest.
I think you're gonna be fine free today, but I can't speak 100%. You're gonna do that.
People on Zoom.
Give us a ballpark, Eric.
Okay. We have 700 reports. We have, let's see, 30 members, and 8 guests. Let's see. Shannon has his regular guests.
Ladies, all fingers accounted for? All fingers? Yes, I like that.
Stephanie has a guest. Yes.
This is my son David. He's back from Purdue right now, and so he was one of your outbound students in 2018, 2019 in Peru. So he's using his Spanish skills as a double major at Purdue in business Spanish, and he's currently a translator at Harrison Steel Casting in western part of Indiana. Has got them up to 100% hiring. All their positions are filled, and has been really instrumental in bridging that communication gap for about 40% of the workers who are Spanish speakers. So,
Welcome,
proud of him. Happy to have program participated in.
Thanks. Welcome, David.
And Ryan has his regular guest. Yeah. And Rick Morales has 2 guests.
Daniel Palmer was here, works at Wright State, he's gone. He was a very brief guest. I think everyone here knows my wonderful, gorgeous wife, Becca. She's here mainly to support violence-free futures because she's on the board and works closely with them.
Nice. Welcome back, Becca.
So that gets us at 37%, 8.8% attendance today.
All right, we like it.
Pretty amazing.
Welcome back. And I would like to introduce the late sub as Sergeant at Arms, Elizabeth Cusack. That is by far the largest applause of any Sergeant at Arms.
Wow, I feel honored. Thank you very much. So,
Dave knew at the last minute that he didn't have Sergeant at Arms Mayor Adams wasn't able to be here this week or next week, and he didn't want to spring it on you at the last minute, Brian. So, and I personally wanted to do this for me, and Amanda said that there were no blonde chicks today, so. But Dave did not ask me, I volunteered, I figured, knowing that he didn't have anybody, I wanted to make sure his January meeting started off strong and service above self. I wanted to make sure that I supported my husband in this today. So I had some time yesterday when my daughter was at volleyball practice. I thought, how hard could this be? Came home and I said, I'm not funny and I tell lousy jokes. And he said, perfect. That's the job description. So with that, I'm going to give you a little Rotary fact. Every month, Rotary International has a different theme. And does anybody know what the January theme is for Rotary? It's vocational services. And a lot of people think of Rotary and they know that the different areas of service, we have education, we have clean water, we have poverty, but vocational services is often referred to as the forgotten service. And it truly is the fundamental part of Rotary. When Paul Harris established Rotary in Chicago, it was all about having professional people coming together for fellowship, and then knowing it was at the highest integrity of people who had work ethics. So that's the fundamental way that Rotary started. And each of us have a different classification if you look at your badge, right? And it's all, at one point, Rotary only allows a certain amount of people for a certain classification into the club. So you can only have one lawyer, you could only have one accountant, you could only have one engineer, and that has certainly changed. There are some clubs that still do what's called a classification talk, where they will have a member of their club come up, do about 5 minutes, talk about their career, talk about their profession, so they carry on that vocational part of the Rotary service. So today, January 5th, every day is a holiday, every day is worth celebrating. And for January 5th, it is National Bird Day, it's National Keto Day, National Whipped Cream Day, and National Screenwriters Day. A little bit about today in history. In 1998, Sonny Bono was killed in a skiing accident. You guys remember that? He was killed when he hit a tree while skiing in Heavenly Mountain Resort near South Lake Tahoe. After Bono's death, his wife Mary said that Sonny had been addicted to Vicodin and Valium, and that she believed that her husband's drug use caused the accident. However, there was no drug or alcohol found in his body during the autopsy. The epitaph on Bono's headstone reads, and the beat goes on. In 1925 on today, the first woman became a U.S. governor. Happened in Wyoming. Mrs. Nellie Ross became governor when she won by a special election after her husband died in office. In 1914, today, Ford Company did an unprecedented move by doubling the salary of their employees. They went from $2.50 an hour to $5 an hour. They doubled this because the fact that there was such high turnover, they had to hire 50,000 workers to fill only 14,000 jobs the previous year. The assembly line was monotonous work, so they had a hard time keeping employees. The high rate of pay attracted thousands of people from across the country. Crowds were so large that a riot broke out, and that crowd had to be dispersed with fire hoses. So it wasn't automatic that you got the $5 an hour. There was the base pay of $2.50, and in order to get up to $5 an hour, you had to abide by certain requirements. The first one is you had to abstain from alcohol and gambling. Any immigrant workers had to learn English and take classes to become Americanized. You could not physically abuse their family, hence our speaker today. Keep your homes clean, not take in any boarders, and men's wives could not work outside the home. In 1818 on today, the James Monroe was the first ocean liner that set sail. The maiden voyage went from New York to England. It arrived February 2nd. This day in 1968, Dr. Spock was indicted on aiding and abetting in draft evasion. The famed baby doctor and Olympic gold winner was indicted for conspiracy to aid others in draft evasion. He was later convicted and sentenced to 2 years. Dr. Spock wrote the Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care in 1946, and it was one of the best-selling books of the 20th century. Sold over 500,000 copies the first 6 months, and by the time he died in 1998, it sold over 50 million copies. So does anybody know what he competed in the Olympics? He was a rower. He was on an all-male Yale rowing team, and the captain of that team was James Rockefeller. So today in 1961, the TV show Mr. Ed debuted. It first started as a syndicated show and was picked up by CBS the following October. The original pilot was financed by comedian George Burns. In 1905, the National Association of Audubon Societies was incorporated, which is dedicated to protecting birds, hence today being National Bird Day. And in 1887, today, the first library school opened, and that was at Columbia University, and it was founded by Melville Dewey, who created the Dewey Decimal System, which we still use today. And in 1776, New Hampshire, the colony of New Hampshire, adopted the first state constitution. All right, famous birthdays today. Walter Mondale was born in 1928. He's an American politician, vice president. In 1914, George Reeves, who was Superman in the TV series. In 1946, Diane Keaton was born, famous for the movie Annie Hall. One of my favorite actors in 1931, Robert Duvall, was born. Godfather, Apocalypse Now. In the Cusack household over Christmas, it's 4 Christmases. I think we watched it at least 10 times. And then in 1975, Bradley Cooper was born. Right, I do have a couple of jokes that I will attempt. A guy sits down at a bar. Is everything okay? The bartender asked. My wife and I got in a fight, and she wasn't going to talk to me for a month. The bartender said, well, maybe that can be a good thing. You know, a little peace and quiet. Yeah, but today's the last day. In a Catholic school cafeteria, I'm Catholic, so I can tell you this joke. A little boy was standing in front of a pile of apples. A nun approached him and whispered in his ear, only take one, God is watching, and walked away. Further down the row, there was a pile of cookies. The little boy whispered into his friend's ear and said, take what you want, God is watching the apples. So here's some advice for your New Year's resolution. Instead of calling your toilet the John, call it the gym. That way it sounds better when you say I hit the gym first thing in the morning. And finally, in honor of Rotary's theme for January, I found a vocational joke. 5 surgeons were in a bar talking about their best patients. The first surgeon said, accountants are the best to operate on because when you open them up, everything is numbered inside. The second surgeon said, nah, librarians are. Everything inside of them is in alphabetical order. The third surgeon said, try electricians, man. Everything inside of them is color-coded. The fourth surgeon interceded, I prefer lawyers. They're heartless, spineless, gutless, and their heads and asses are interchangeable. The surgeon, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, said, I like engineers. They always understand when you have a few parts left over at the end. All right, we have a few club celebrations. Since we last met, Amanda had a birthday on December 21st. Happy birthday. And Mick Lundy had a birthday on December 17th. Wedding anniversaries. Dave and I celebrated on the 26th. Our last one. And JD celebrated his 21st anniversary with his wife Melanie on the 28th. And club anniversaries, Ed Phillips, who's not here today, he and Phil Sparks both began 35 years ago on January 1st, 1989. All right, so today's fines. If you've been skiing, that is $1.
There you go.
If you run into a tree while skiing, that's $2. If you can recite the theme song from Mr. Ed, that's $1.
Horses.
And if you're singing it, that's $2. If you've ever seen a Robert Duvall movie, that's $1. If you've ever read Dr. Spock's book, The Common Sense of the Baby in Childcare, that's $1. If you've ever ridden in a Model T car, anybody? Can I get anybody on that? Cedar Point, that's $1. And if you are not wearing your Rotary pin, that's $1. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. President for happy bucks.
Low hanging fruit, those lawyer jokes. Yeah. Shocking. All right. So happy bucks. Who's got a happy buck? Rick Rouse.
I've got a couple. Well, why don't you go quick, Judge, because one of them's gonna be what you're gonna talk about, right? Andrew? Go ahead.
Now that we have a preview of yours, Judge.
So most of you know Judge Hunt began this week as the official second judge for Faribault Municipal Court. So I have $1 for him. As you can see, he's not here because he's got a little bit of a uphill curve of learning right now.
Yeah.
So he's still working. But he has fit in seamlessly. It just feels very natural to have him there. It's been a pleasure. And so the other byproduct for me is that I get to be here a little bit more with Happy.
Awesome. Rick, did you want to give us a headline for anybody else's happy bucks, or are you just gonna go with yours?
Towards Judge Ruth's court, Andrew's investiture was so well done, so classy. So I think a lot of folks here was there to support him. And he's gonna do a great job. And the board knows that Judge Ruth needs another judge. I am so sorry. I'm sorry about that. The other $1 is, again, for the violence-free futures. I lived with those guys for a decade, and they are unsung heroes. They help people who nobody knows about, and they do a wonderful job with very few resources. So I'm very excited you guys are here and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Other happy bucks. JD.
So my youngest son, Justin, has taken up wrestling. So I've gone from marching band to now I'm invested in wrestling. He started this year. He's been over for about a month. He got his first win last night.
We'd like to point out to our sergeant at arms that you gotta collect the happy bucks too, so. All right, who else we got? Dan Garth.
We have a local business that won the Ohio Success Award for 2024. And it is it's called the Sweet Bakery. And it's over Dayton Senior Road. My granddaughter is the chief maker.
All right, nice. Other happy bucks. Pete.
I'll throw one in. Last night, I was, after the Wright State game, I got home, I was watching a little bit of TV, and my son comes running downstairs. He's so excited. And he said, Dad. So what is it? He goes, Justin went first, right? He was so excited, so I
That's awesome.
scared if you're happy.
Awesome. Other happy bucks. Yes, Stephanie.
So we've enjoyed having all 4 of our kids home for Christmas, and so over the last 5 years, we've talked about going to Hawaii, and we actually were able to take all of us. Didn't lose anybody to shark attack or an accident or anything like that, so it was nice to have everybody. And then for work, I passed my Series 7 investment exam last month, which is not a small feat. A lot of people take it 2 and 3 times, and I got it done the first time, so.
Right.
Feeling it.
Congratulations. Any other happy bucks? All right, ticket drawing. I'll take that.
Wait here.
Yeah. You're still riding that high of the lawyer joke. All right, so remember that half of the drawing goes to benefit our Christmas basket project. We are looking for ticket number 338321.
Boy.
Rick Morales. Becca. All right. All right, so Beth will bring you the cards and you're looking for the Queen of Hearts.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh, we're down to the.
Throw the-
Right, Chris. All right. Do we have any announcements? Okay, well, I have an announcement that showed up here that on the 19th, we're gonna have a board meeting. Everybody's welcome to attend. Any other announcements we have?
Yeah, there's gonna be a board meeting for the foundation next Friday following the meeting. So if you're on the foundation board, and that means if you're any of the last 7 club presidents, you're on the foundation board.
All right. Okay, so I will then ask Pete Bales to come forward and introduce our speaker.
Well, good afternoon. I'm going to read you a little bit about bio for Debbie Matheson, but then say a few more words really about my experience with her and a little bit about her character. So Debbie Matheson is the Executive Director of Violence Free Futures. She earned her bachelor's degree in social work from Cedarville University, and then her master's degree in social work from Edinburgh University. She is a licensed social worker. Debbie has served in many different roles at Violence Free Futures for nearly 3 decades. Hard to believe, huh? She started by volunteering to work with children who suffered from the effects of domestic violence and found a strong passion for working with families affected by the devastation of domestic violence and sexual assault. Now her energy is spent educating our community and producing creative responses to domestic violence and sexual assault while supporting her amazing team at the center. And I'd also like to say I pulled a newspaper article about Debbie from last year. And she was nominated as a community gem. And they wrote an article about her. And I think there's just some really powerful, amazing statements that we all should hear about and enjoy. And so I'll read some to you. She said, just seeing the small points that I can celebrate with parents with the children as they recover from historic, sometimes layered, sometimes generational trauma, and being able to be there to celebrate small things with them is so rewarding. And one of our board members, Tina Marker, said in the article, she is the epitome of what a nonprofit leader should be. She instills a lot of value in everyone she collaborates with and everyone she's mentoring. And as she juggles many responsibilities of a very heavy position, she does it all with a smile on her face, as you will see. Debbie is the person to roll up her sleeves and do whatever has to be done to make sure that all of the clients are taken care of. The article continues to say, Debbie is not only the only one in her family to do this type of work. She has a husband and a daughter. They're both police officers, and it's just a part of the family values. Matheson has unwavering compassion and continues to shape and strengthen the lives of abused families in Greene County. So she concludes the article by saying, my heart definitely is here serving our community. So I have had the pleasure of serving on the board at Violence Free Futures for a couple of years, and I realize how privileged and sheltered my life is, right? Thankfully. But it is a pleasure to serve with Debbie, and the work she does is amazing. So please give her a warm welcome.
And I am glad to start the new year with all of you and just having an opportunity to talk about what we're doing, what we're planning at Violence Free Futures for this year. Many of you have known us as Family Violence Prevention Center, and before that, we were the Greene County Domestic Violence Project. I have worked at the organization under all three names. I've encouraged the board to never change the name again. Let's have one last name and just not do this changing process anymore. So as I share with you what we're doing at Violence Free Futures, and we're having some technical support over here, so I'm just gonna, share some other pieces and not dive right into the presentation. But this begins our 45th year of service here in the community, and that is a very long time. I have been with the organization for 30 years, having an opportunity to serve families, and we know on average a domestic violence survivor is going to leave an abusive partner 7 times. It's going to span about 8 years. So it's almost an entire decade of someone's life of trying to get disentangled from the abuse that's been happening within a relationship. The work is it's hard, but it is rewarding. We celebrate things like moms having a moment to play with their children, and being able to, help their children be focused on school again and not be focused on all of the trauma that has happened in the home. We know that when children are exposed to domestic violence at an early age, it really impacts kind of the structure of how they view the entire world. And so we want to be there to support moms as they're thinking about doing something different, but then also in the work that we do with batters who are court ordered to come and participate in services. That work is important, and we are working really hard to partner with the men that are in the group to be able to look at how they can be the best version of themselves and what ways they would like to change how they are functioning in their family structures, because they're not proud of themselves. They're not proud of what they have done, what they've experienced in responses to, oh goodness, I'm gonna be slightly distracted by that. So I'm gonna stand over here where I don't see what's happening. Sorry. That's okay. Back to batters, they're not proud of what it is that they have done in the homes, and they really are looking forward to the opportunity to do something different. The gentlemen in that group, they write apology letters. And in that process of writing those apology letters, they have a moment to really be self-reflective about some of the things they've done in their relationships that haven't been healthy, and then they are looking at what they want to do differently and kind of the strategies that they're going to use in doing things differently. My intention today was to, and maybe still will be, to walk through what is it like to live the life of domestic violence survivor. Some of you may have seen the Netflix series Made, and some of you may not. If we are in a position where we can click on some of these clips, we're going to walk through just process of what does life look like that is someone living with domestic violence, what struggles they have as they try to reach out for support, looking at monetarily, what would it take for somebody to rebuild their life, and looking at what hope feels like for a survivor on the back end. If we never get to it, I want to encourage you to think about a binge-worthy experience you might need this winter, and just getting onto Netflix and watching Made. Stephanie Land is the author of the book called Made, and it is the memoirs of her life. So the Netflix series Made is built all around what it is that she experienced. And she didn't identify herself saying like, oh, I want to write this story about domestic violence. She said, I want to tell you the story of a single mom who was struggling to try to put her life together. And as you, again, as we hopefully have an opportunity to take a peek at any of this, we'll have an opportunity to just look at what she experienced, and none of it was against the law. What she experiences, none of it's against the law, but we would all know I never want to experience that myself. I wouldn't want anyone in my family experiencing what she's experienced, but it's not against the law. Law is very measurable. We have to have things measurable in the law. But when we are looking about or thinking about domestic violence, I always try to describe it as the fact that there are some things that are the definition of what is the legal definition of domestic violence. Ohio Revised 2919.25 is the domestic violence law here in Ohio. And that's what's measurable. But then there is this process of looking at what is the social definition of domestic violence and what somebody experiences where they are in a space of having a pattern of unhealthy behavior that's being used in a relationship, trying to gain and maintain power and control over that person's life. And so domestic violence in a, I think in the perspective of what many people have experienced and are struggling, thank you, there we go, struggling with being able to look at what they've experienced and try to give it a definition. A lot of people understand if they're in an unhealthy relationship, but they maybe don't understand if their relationship is an actual abusive relationship. And so, again, I talked a little bit about that definition, one person's pattern of unhealthy behavior being used to impose and gain power and control over another in an intimate relationship. That is the definition, social definition of domestic violence. And we are a dual domestic and sexual violence service provider, so that is what is present there. And I love my team over here to the right. It's doing a lot of good whispering and clicking and that. I love it. And if we can go to another slide, that would be really great. I don't know if we can. Okay. So. Okay. Oh, good. So, for those of you who don't know very much about me, technology has an allergy to me as a person. So if I'm coming anywhere, please, that you ask me to come, tell me not to bring technology with me, because I do better just maybe telling you a story rather than clicking around on all of this. So, no, okay.
I'm sorry.
No.
We have to play the videos over the Bluetooth, so it's hard trying to get it.
Okay. So let's see. While they're thinking about that, how about do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions about what it is that we do? Yes.
I actually have a question about the batterer program you just. It's been a while since I've represented someone for domestic violence and allegations, but do you see a lot of repeat batterers come through the program, or is it a program that can only be court ordered one time and they're not allowed to participate again? How does that work for the batterers?
No, they absolutely can come more than one time. And if you think about things in your life, maybe sometimes we get a little bit more the second time we're doing something or the third time we're doing something. So there isn't a process where we would say someone only comes one time. Karen, sitting right there at the table with you, trying to duck behind Brian, in her internship had an opportunity to be facilitating our batterers intervention program using the Duluth model. There are 3 evidence-based models that are recognized to bring outcomes forward that would be positive. in the same way, when we think too about like substance use disorder, somebody might be ordered more than one time to go to a treatment program because they're getting something, relapsing, getting something else the next time they go. And we would, yes, just encourage people to always be going to batter's intervention and not necessarily anger management. Anger management would really work out well for folks when they're angry everywhere in their life and not just angry at home. Good question. Okay, Pete.
Could you share with the club, some statistics about how many people you see and serve?
Yeah.
Average annually and so forth?
So in a given year, we see about 8,000 to 8,500 individuals here in our community. So when we think about, does this happen here in our community? The answer is yes. About 3,000 of those individuals specifically are middle school and high school students, where we are trying to reach into the school and do some primary prevention, talking with individuals about what characteristics and skills go along with healthy relationships. So about 3,000 of those, that number is from that perspective, but every law enforcement jurisdiction in Greene County sends us all their police reports that relate to domestic disputes where no one was arrested, domestic violence where someone could have been arrested, protection order violations where an individual has been told by the court, don't go near this person, but they do it anyhow, stalking, and strangulation. So all those cases end up rolling our direction, and we have the opportunity to reach in by phone or with the Xenia Police Division, we go in to do home visits. The Sheriff's Office also, they have just received a Violence Against Women grant, and Sergeant Beth Brawl is tied with our social worker as well, and they are going into homes and doing home visits. So we try to creatively respond to domestic violence like Pete was sharing. So that is, those are two ways on kind of different ends, that prevention, how can we try to get with youth and talk with them about what building a healthy relationship looks like. And I would challenge you, when you have children, you have grandchildren, you have nieces, nephews, talk with them about how you date, how you build a relationship. That's my challenge for you as you leave today. Make sure that you take time to talk with people about how to build healthy and positive relationships. Very important that we have those conversations. Conversation I had with my great aunt was, she just said, marriage, Debbie, is nothing like dating. Okay, that's great. What's some other great advice? That was the end of it. I asked my mom. My mom said, date a bunch of people. At the same time, what I'm talking about, that sounds like a terrible plan. But that was the relationship advice that I got from my family. So have those conversations. Sit and talk with youth, even if they're going. Teenagers make those sounds. College students sometimes make those sounds. Sorry, I know that you are fresh from college, but still youth. They do. Adults, they want to understand what we know about relationships and how we can be positively helping them think about what do they want and how do they want to be? Because that's the other challenge. We're always needing to challenge ourselves to be responsible and self-reflective of our own behavior. Other questions? Rick?
Hey, Debbie, talk a little bit about your funding model, because I think many people think that you're publicly funded. And of course, that's not the case.
No, last night I left work at about 9:30 because I was finishing our application to the Ohio Department of Education so I could get $12,000 for each year to pay for food for children in the shelter. So our funding model is built on requesting grants. So we have federal money, We have some state money, we have local money, we're funded by the Mental Health Recovery Board, we're funded by United Way, we're funded by clubs like yours. Here, just local dollars, trying to reach in and support what happens in the community, but we are looking every year for about $1.4 million to operate across many different sectors of our community, because we've got that work in the middle schools and high schools. We're working on all 5 of the college campuses and doing dating violence and sexual violence prevention with the campuses. And then also providing counseling services for children starting at 3.5 right on up. So the Mental Health Recovery Board fits in there. We do have some Medicaid support that we get. But every grant that we are writing takes quite a bit of writing and quite a bit of reporting. And we are so thankful also for the fact that the state made specific money available for domestic and sexual violence. And Amy, if you could just go way down, and we're gonna give it to maybe the second to the last slide. Okay, and we're gonna not worry about some. We're just gonna not worry about some.
While you're waiting for that, Debbie, why don't you talk about your main fundraiser?
So, in the process of looking at, again, still funding structure, we do 2 major fundraisers, but our main major fundraiser is during the spring and spring fling. There's lots of fun things that happen at that event, where we have a dessert dash. You have to partner with everybody at your table to gather dollars to create a nice gathering of money to support the work that's being done. And then you get to dash up and get a dessert. But over the last few years, we've been able to raise about $80,000 at each one of those events the last 2 springs. So that is all kinds of positive energy and support from the community. We know that domestic violence and sexual violence are very difficult topics to talk about, but the support that comes from the community is very helpful, and it's clear that the community understands that it is a challenge in a local area. What is on the screen right now is the fatality review from the Ohio Domestic Violence Network for the state of Ohio. And over the last 5 years, there have been 5 deaths in Greene County to domestic violence. It is very important that we take a look at what we can do better or differently in our systems. It's not to say that anyone is to blame in any particular area, but it's just to say, how do we do this a little bit differently? So currently working with Brandon Huddleston and his staff there in the commissioner's office to be establishing a death review in the community to review these particular cases. But in 2023, this is measuring July 1 of 22 to June 30 of 2023, there were 112 fatalities. That was the same number as the year before. So we had 112 deaths that previous year also. When we look at what this kind of pictogram is really indicating to us, that is kind of important. There were a number of family annihilation cases where a perpetrator said, I'm gonna get rid of everybody in the family and get rid of myself. And that was one of the cases that the most recent death in our community that was domestic violence related was a family annihilation case. There were 100 people that were shot in the 82 cases, and only 15 survived from the injuries of being shot here in Ohio. And then 30% of cases had children present on the scene when the death was occurring. So then you've got those children being dramatically impacted by watching that. And then they're gonna have to try to figure life out. How do I live life? Maybe Amy, if you'll pop to the next screen, that would be great. So, the impact of, the report, we've been able to, as an entire coalition, we've been trying to help, educate throughout the state, around the need for dollars that go along with this. So as Rick is talking about dollars and asking questions about dollars, we've been trying to say how important it is. Prior to the increase of, funds, which was approved and is in the state budget, from this last July, there's a $20 million allocation for domestic violence. But prior to that, Ohio spent 32 cents per capita, Pennsylvania spent 156. West Virginia was spending $1.41, Indiana was spending 91 cents, and Kentucky was spending $2.54. So we're being outspent by everybody around us essentially. And right now with a $20 million increase, we're spending 85 cents in the state of Ohio per capita to address domestic violence. So we're still, the lowest performing state, but we are making great strides and so appreciative of that additional dollars. And so thank you, Representative Lampton, for supporting that process. So money's important, people are important, and so I spent time doing that. Last night, also before I left, I spent time with a mom who delivered about 3 weeks ago, and she was struggling with having her child latch. And she's trying to breastfeed, and she just wanted to talk with someone about it. So you've got moments like that where you get to just have a moment to be real with someone and listen to them and help them. And then you gotta go somewhere and sit down and write something on a bunch of papers. But that is a part of the work that we do, and the team is really helpful with all the survivors and just going as slow as we can with them to support them. And I think we have nearly made it to the end of our time, but if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to.
Why don't you talk real quickly about the size of the shelter, how many clients we can have, and also about the new facility?
Yes, okay, and I'm gonna add pets into there, so
Yes.
really quickly, we're a 32 bed shelter, we've got 9 beds, 9 bedrooms, excuse me, in June of 21, we opened the program up to allow individuals to bring their pets with them into the shelter, which, you know, if you had thought about having to leave, but you were leaving behind a cat or a dog, and you weren't sure if they were going to be safe, it wouldn't be something that you would feel like you could do. And sometimes individuals will have our larger animals too. We've had folks call and they've had horses, or folks call with lizards and other things. And just saying, how can I be safe, but how can my animal be safe as well? So we really try to respond to that and are continuing to grow in that particular area. And with support from the Greene County Commissioners, they have given our organization $1.1 million. We've been able to purchase a building on Progress Drive, and all of our outreach counseling services and our education and support services, our prevention program, is all going to land over there on Progress. That building is under rehab right now, so that's very exciting. I was listening to Detective Clay from the Xenia Police Division yesterday call a survivor and say that she wanted to talk about support services. And she said, yeah, you know, the shelter's available, the DV shelter, and they can help you if you need something. Well, that immediately takes your mind to, do I need a bed? But there's so much more that people need than a bed. So we are Violence-Free Futures, and we offer so much counseling, support, education, an advocate, someone to listen, someone to go to the domestic relations court with you if you want to get a protection order, to go sit with you while the prosecutors and the victim advocates in the court are busily working on your behalf. Our advocates are able to be there with the individuals also if necessary. So there's so much more than we do than house people in the shelter. In the shelter, we serve about 185 to 200 individuals. So again, out of that number of 8,500 people that we're serving, the shelter is a very small part Last year, we responded to about 1,025 hotline calls. So we spend a lot of time talking to people over the hotline. They are also able to text to us. The younger generation is really excited about that. You know, they feel comfortable behind that screen. They can text quickly. So we're responding to survivors from that perspective as well. Any other questions? I'm not gonna be the one that's gonna get you out here late though.
So not to get too far into the weeds, but on a preventative side, how much of it do you think is like drug, alcohol, and mental health related?
And that is a good question, because it can be like a part of the layer. But I don't, we do not come from a perspective that alcohol or drugs makes someone be abusive. When you think about how alcohol kind of interacts, sometimes it makes somebody a little bit more of who they are. Like if I'm a real jovial person and I'm drinking, I maybe become even more jovial. It's that inhibition is taken away, and then whatever is in their heart and their mind starts pouring out. And so we see many people express that what happens behind their closed door is not what other people see. You know, so a family member, if they're expressing, hey, my life partner is abusive, and other folks say, well, I've never seen them act like that. Well, the way that we act behind a closed door also may be different. But I'm going to say it doesn't cause it, but it interplays. And a statistic around that is domestic violence survivors are 14 times more likely than anyone else to use a substance to try to deal with the drama and the trauma that they've experienced. So we go over every Friday morning to Women's Recovery, which is a substance use disorder program, and we are there trying to provide education and support to the ladies that are in that program and give them an opportunity to talk about the domestic violence that they've experienced. And nearly every single lady in there will identify, yes, I've experienced domestic violence. Did I answer? Okay. Yeah.
So I know it's not a like double blind study or anything, but can you tell our club what you've seen from the outreach at the high schools and stuff in terms of Green County offenders?
Yeah, and that is a good question. The reason that the Batters Intervention Group even was started was because our prevention coordinator was in school talking about the services that we provide as a part of what we share when we're making the presentations. And a young man stayed back and said, you have helped me and you have helped my mom, but who will help my dad? And, you know, that it was kind of a really excellent question, like who will step forward and not just kibosh that person, but really try to say, how can I help you become a meaningful member of society again? And so that was the impetus of starting our Batters Intervention program, coming from the prevention, coming from a young individual asking a good question. We also have asked the youth to always be telling us what is an attitude awareness or behavior change. And so there's so many beautiful comments that come out from the students about how they've never had someone talk with them about these relationship components, and they're glad to have an opportunity to do that, and they're going to think differently. Several years ago, one of the high school quarterbacks in our community, before the class was over, crying, can I please talk to you? I do just what my dad does. I do it. I do this. Everything that you're saying, my dad does it and I'm doing it and I want to stop. And so it's important. That work is so important to be doing that. I think there was one more thing.
A lot of these situations always seem like it's the spouse that needs to. Having worked in higher education, 18 to 24-year-old adult children are vulnerable. They don't have financial safety net place to go when there are shows with us.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a safe landing place for young adults who kind of are financially reliant on people who
Absolutely. And so our advocates that are on the university campuses have those conversations. Coming out of this last academic year, we had 2 students they didn't return home. They came and stayed at the shelter because that was what was necessary for them. We have an agreement with Central State in their counseling program that they can call any time of the day or night, and they can just say, we have a student that needs a safe place to be. And in our group room in the shelter, we have 2 Murphy beds, and we're able to just fold them down off the wall, and we can immediately provide someone with a safe place to stay while we figure it out in the morning. But they can have that moment right there. And you're absolutely right. Youth are in a very vulnerable space. And sometimes that's why, we find the need to be right there on the campus just to provide that additional support. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So she could have been here all day. I'm going to point out a couple of things. So there's some cards on your tables. If you have an interest in helping in some way, and you just want to know how, you can go to violencefreefutures.org, and they have a wish list for things that they may want. Of course, obviously, money is the most fungible, but then there's also opportunities to volunteer. We have people that are planting flowers out there or helping with any number of things. John is there every week getting food from the food pantry. So there's lots of needs, and the way that they are flexible to, if you think about that shelter and all those people there and the different needs of everyone to accommodate transporting kids to school or getting people to work and having their life be as normal as possible while they're protected, it's an amazing operation. So we are dedicating a book as usual on behalf of our program here today to the Greene County Community Library. And it is A Girl Can Build Anything. All right. Do we have anything else for the good of the club? Okay, if you'll rise for the pledge, I will tell you next week's program is Pete Landrum, State of the City. Bob Kachoy and David Brandenburg are greeters. Please keep an eye on our social media outlets and for anything else coming up. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone have a wonderful week.